I'm going to go ahead and bring up my PowerPoint if that's okay. That way I'll be ready to go.
That sounds fine.
And hopefully you're seeing my PowerPoint screen here.
Yes, I've started recording as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
I have started the recording, so you all know that you're being recorded.
Matt, I hope your presentation includes telling us about your organization.
It certainly does.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I'm curious about what all the Institute on Disability does in the community or in the state.
Yes, I would be happy to cover that. In fact, I included that in my presentation.
Okay.
So I'm glad you asked.
We'll just wait one more minute, Matt. See if anyone else. Some of our people just come for the speaker at 10:30. So it's hard to jump in after things have started. So now it's 10:30. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Cindy. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I think the last time I met with a group in person, I think it was your group back in March, maybe March 3rd or 4th in 2020. So I'm glad to be joining you again today, this spring. And even though we're doing this remotely, we're not there at the library in downtown Indianapolis. I'm glad to be joining you today. I'm joining you from Bloomington, Indiana. And my name is Matt Norris. I'm a research associate social worker at the organization, the Indiana Institute on Disability and Community. And we are actually located here in Bloomington. I'm going to be giving you a little bit of information about the Indiana Institute, as well as a project that we do there called ADA Indiana. You can see on my screen here, I have we are affiliated with Indiana University Bloomington. We have on my screen, I have an IU icon, and then, of course, I have our logo for our ADA Indiana. This is the statewide organization that I'll be giving you a little update on. And I'll kind of go in to my presentation as if maybe some of you are new to ADA Indiana. So I'm sorry if for those of you who were there at last year, I'll give some basic overview of kind of what our organization does in terms of promoting the implementation of the Americans with Disabilities Act here in our state. But I'll also give you some updates on some of the things we've been doing since I last connected with your group in March. So I'm going to go ahead and move to my next slide here. Where I work, I am working remotely. So I'm working from home this morning, and we've been working from home since, like I said, last March of 2020. But if I was, I work for the organization, the Indiana Institute on Disability and Community, and we are located there on the Bloomington campus. We're a little off site, kind of not right there in downtown Bloomington. We're a little on the east side of Bloomington. We're kind of located close to where they are building the new IU Health Bloomington Hospital. And our mission at the Institute is It's to work with communities to welcome, value, and support the meaningful participation of people of all ages and abilities through research, education, and service. And as I might have mentioned, we are a research institute that's affiliated with IU Bloomington. We receive funding from multiple sources, both federally and state. I should mention that what created our institute is funding through the Developmental Disabilities Act, and that federal act funded 3 organizations in our state: the Indiana Institute on Disability and Community, the Indiana Governor's Council for People with Disabilities, which is known as the Indiana Governor's Council here in our state, but in other states it would be called our State Council on Developmental Disabilities for Indiana, and plus the Indiana Disability Rights, which used to be known as the Indiana Protection and Advocacy Agency. And these 3 organizations were called the Developmental Disabilities Network here. A lot of our work is focused around on supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the community, to have a community life, to work in the community, to live in the community. And so a lot of the work that we do is kind of centered around that. But over the years, even before I started at the Institute, they were taking a more inclusive approach to disability. So we don't just work with on behalf of that population. And some of the core activities that we do, because we're affiliated with the university, we do a lot of research, interdisciplinary training. We're really looking forward to the IU Health Bloomington Hospital, which is going to be located really close to our facilities. We're hoping to make a lot of good connections with the social work program, the public health, the School of Nursing. I hear that they will be having branching out from the IU School of Dentistry. Will be having some type of presence there at the new regional academic health campus at IU Health Bloomington. And so we're really looking forward to that, because that's part of what we do is this interdisciplinary training. We have students who do their internships, do their practicums there at the institutes, and we work with students who are in the special education program, the social work program, and various programs throughout the IU Bloomington as well as other campuses. We are a statewide organization. We are based in Bloomington, but we consider ourselves a state organization that we do a lot of connecting with other campuses throughout the state. And some of our, to continue on with our core functions, a lot of the things that we do are focused around what we like to call the lifespan approach to disability. And so we take, when you look at the work of our institute and the centers that do the work, we have a early childhood center. They work a lot with the First Steps program here in our state. And we have the Center for Education and Lifelong Learning. They do a lot of work with supporting teachers, and not just special education teachers, but general education teachers, and improving their skills and their abilities to work with children with disabilities. We have our Center for Community Living and Careers, which, as the name would suggest, they do a lot of work with promoting, looking at that transition from school to work. And so they work with vocational rehab counselors. They work with service providers who are providing employment services to people with disabilities. We have some very focused, centers such as the Indiana Resource Center for Autism. They are a leader in our state in terms of providing support to families and people with autism and across that spectrum. And then the Center for Collaborative Systems Change. This is a center that focuses a lot on helping organizations evaluate their work. They do a lot of collaboration with the state agencies on evaluating their programs and the different systems that have grants through either the state or the federal government. And then, of course, where I work, the Center for Health Equity. This is a relatively new in terms of the scheme of the Institute, which has been around since the early 70s. The Center for Health Equity, we've actually been in existence for 4 years. Before that, we were the Center for Aging and Community. And when our new director, Dr. Derek Nord, came on, he wanted a Center for Health Equity, or a center that focused on health issues. And we brought on Dr. J.Chul Lee, who has worked with other state developmental disability programs in the state in terms of developing their health-focused research. And so we were very lucky to get him to come, and he came and led that transition from our Center for Aging and Community to the Center for Health Equity. And a lot of I think I included some information about some of the other projects that we do. We do, as you might expect, a lot of our projects there at the Center for Health Equity are focused on health and disability. So, for instance, our Disability and Health Project, this is an ongoing project that we've been doing, funded through the Indiana Department of Health and their Division of Chronic Disease, Primary Care, and Rural Health. And they provided us funding to convene a disability at work group that meets regularly with various agencies, whether within the Indiana Department of Health or with other state coalitions, organizations that are doing work in that space of, promoting health and wellness and trying to decrease those rates of chronic disease for Hoosiers here in our state. And we also, through that project, we do several training activities throughout the year. Usually in the fall, we'll have a series of Optimal Health for All workshops where we focus on a specific communities, working with providers and trying to educate them about how to provide disability competent care for the patients with disabilities. And for a couple of years, we've been doing the Oral Health for Hoosiers project, which is something that is a project funded through the Indiana Governor's Council for people with disabilities. And we've been working on first year or so, we did a lot of talking with the caregivers, people with disabilities, and members of the dental workforce, dentists, dental hygienists, about oral health care for people with disabilities in our state. And now we've moved on to where we are actually developing training, and the coming year we will be doing workshops throughout the state. Hopefully we'll be doing them in person. We're planning for that, and hopefully that'll work out, but we'll have to wait and see. And then moving on, we've been also doing a sexual health education for women with intellectual and developmental disabilities. That's another project funded through the Indiana Governor's Council. That's something that we've been doing for a couple of years now, focusing on developing the capacity of not only women with intellectual and developmental disabilities, but family caregivers and also service providers that support them in the community. We also do this great project, the Indiana Disability History. You could do a search for Indiana Disability History, and that would probably bring you to that site where we've collected for several years now the oral history stories of people with disabilities here in our state. We've touched on topics such as the process of deinstitutionalization here in our state, the grassroots efforts of the people such as Christine Dahlberg, who is now the director of the Indiana Governor's Council. We have her talking about when she was brought on to the council to lead that grassroots advocacy effort to promote the ADA and get it passed. So we got some really exciting videos there. It focuses a lot on the lived experience of people with disabilities. And then, of course, ADA Indiana. This is a project that we've been doing for as probably since the early 1990s, as long as the ADA. We should probably be celebrating our 30th of ADA Indiana. I haven't been there at the Institute that long, but the organization, the project ADA Indiana has, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that, kind of give you some background information. But, we are going to be, while I won't be talking a lot about the Americans with Disabilities Act today, because certainly, that could take more than the 30 minutes that you've graciously allowed me to come and talk about ADA Indiana. But just to give you, certainly part of my job, part of what we do with ADA Indiana is provide education and information and resources to the Americans with Disabilities Act here in our state. So feel free to give me, contact me. I will pass along my information to Teresa to pass along to you. I've created a share folder that will have some of the materials that I'm talking about. And certainly feel free to give me a call. I'll be talking about the 800, the National ADA Helpline that is available to anyone that you can call, and I'll talk a little bit about how that works. But certainly, if you have questions and there's no, the question could be, what is the ADA? And that's kind of, I think I left this in from my last presentation. I'm not going to go too much into exactly what the Americans with Disabilities Act is and, cover that, because like I said, it could take longer than the time we have allowed. But, just to make sure that, what the ADA part of ADA Indiana is, I just wanted to include this here. The ADA is a civil rights law. It protects people with disabilities, and it covers a lot of those aspects of community life that we hold precious and want people to be a part of. The employment, having work, participating in local and state government, even going into community places. The Title III of the ADA covers those community spaces, such as stores, hotels, healthcare facilities, and really more than I have time to go into. Transportation, whether that's under, the public transportation, getting on the, the bus, or for some people that may be a complimentary paratransit is what it's called. For others, it may be, access to things like taxis and things like that, which would fall under the ADA as well. And then, of course, for your group, the telecommunications part, that's probably a very important issue here for this group. And like I said, I'm not going to go into these specific titles, but certainly feel free to give me a call, or if it's something you want to learn about, we can certainly arrange a time down the road later this year where we could do that. And like I said, employment, local and state government, community places, and telecommunications. Now I'm going to move into kind of, that now that we know that we're talking about the Americans with Disabilities Act, and when we talk about ADA Indiana, that's what the ADA stands for. And what ADA Indiana, what we do in this state, we are not an enforcement entity under the Americans with Disabilities Act. There's a lot of options, depending on, where the discrimination, where you feel the discrimination is occurring, where you can file a complaint under the federal law. For employment, that may be with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which handles those employment provisions of the ADA. For the local and state government, and we talked about the access to community spaces, that would be the U.S. Department of Justice. That's kind of their area to enforce. The Title IV, the telecommunications, that would be the federal FCC, Communications Commission. But I just wanted to clarify that, our organization, ADA Indiana, we are not a enforcement entity. In fact, what we do, but we do receive support from the federal government, because when the ADA came out, those in the government saw that there would be a need to educate and train and provide information about its important civil rights law. for people with disabilities. And so ADA Indiana, we receive funding from a couple of different sources, and one of them is the Great Lakes ADA Center. We are their state affiliate, and they provide us with funding because we are one of the states in the region. And the Great Lakes ADA Center receives funding from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services through their Administration for Community Living and their Disability Division. They are the federal source of funding for this work, and so the Great Lakes ADA Center is what's known as, they are one of 10 regional ADA centers in the country, and they serve our state. And so they decided a long time ago that they wanted to develop relationships with organizations in each one of the states, and so we've worked with them for a long time, and to be their state affiliate here. And what that means is we promote a lot of their resources, their training opportunities, the 800 ADA Helpline. And but I should also mention that we are also funded by the Indiana Governor's Council for People with Disabilities. They provide funding as well. And they fund, I'll talk later on about some of the specific things that they fund as part of our work here in the state. And the ADA Indiana, even though we are hosted there, it's hosted at the Center for Health Equity. We consider it a project of the Indiana Institute. Group of volunteers called the ADA Steering Committee, and these are volunteers who serve on our committee, and they represent our current chair, Frank Epperson. He is at the ADA. He's not the ADA coordinator for Indiana University, but he's an ADA specialist who works for Indiana University Human Resources. And so he's actually one of the person who is working with individuals and getting their workplace accommodations and helping them to kind of work out things in their workplace. And he does that across all the campuses here in Indiana. Our vice chair, Rick Edwards, he is an ADA coordinator. That is the designated employee for a local government, a state agency, who ensures that they're compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And Rick is the ADA coordinator for the Indiana Department of Natural Resources. So he always tells us great stories of traveling throughout the state. He goes assist on promoting access and throughout all their properties throughout the state. So before COVID-19 pandemic, he did a lot more traveling. Of course, now he's doing a lot of remote work, but he did a lot of traveling throughout the state, working with various property managers to make sure those DNR activities were accessible to people with disabilities. And so the mission of our organization, ADA Indiana, is to serve as a statewide resource for promoting the implementation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I think I already talked a little bit about our steering committee and how we meet, covered Frank and Rick Edwards. And we meet on, the steering committee meets on a monthly basis to provide input on work and share resources. As a staff person, I provide updates on some of the projects that we're doing. And then, of course, we always have a roundtable sharing where we can talk about ADA issues going on in the state. Members can share resources. We have a very diverse, in terms of work experience for our steering committee members. Like I said, Frank Epperson works for Indiana University Human Resources. Rick Edwards works for the Department of Natural Resources. But we also have an architect who works for the International Code Council. We have representatives from the Center for Independent Living and the various state agencies and local governments. We have a couple of ADA coordinators who act in that capacity for their municipal government. And then, of course, we have individual advocates who have joined just because they want to be better informed of what's going on in terms of the ADA. And so what we do, we provide technical assistance, training opportunities, an annual training event. We have a local community grants program. We do exhibits and presentations such as this just to let people know about what we do and what information we can provide. While I don't have it here at my office at home, we have print publications. We still have a budget where we print publications and send those out to people who prefer to have them in print. We maintain a website and social media accounts to kind of promote our work and the resources we have available. One of the things we do is we promote the ADA Helpline, which I'll give you here. You can find it anywhere on our website. This number here, the 812-856-5251 number is actually my office number, so feel free to give me a call directly. And then just here are some updates I'm going to be covering. We're going to be covering the ADA 30 Summit Report, and we did that last year during the 30th anniversary of the ADA, and I just want to let you know that that's available and what we shared with that, our ADA grants program. This year we are doing an ADA training academy, which is pretty exciting. I'll give you some information about that. And then of course some of the outreach and the training activities that we are doing. Last year for the ADA, the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, 30th anniversary was celebrated last year, July 26th. We'll be celebrating the 31st anniversary this coming summer. But last year we had an opportunity we thought it would be a great way to commemorate the anniversary, especially during the time when the pandemic, when we weren't able to get together, was to do what we called the ADA at 30 Summit. And this included interviewing leaders in the disability community. We had a great opportunity. We met with both Teresa and Paula from your organization to kind of get your perspective on what are some of the, what have been the successes, what are the things we need to address in terms of moving forward from the perspective of, the hearing loss community. But we also met with 12 other disability leaders from the American Council of the Blind Indiana, the Indiana Association of the Deaf, Centers for Independent Living. We interviewed a few people who represented those organizations. And we also hosted 4 online regional town hall meetings, focused on specific communities. And we also conducted an online survey. Looks like I didn't finish my thought here, but we incorporated the American Sign Language videos into that, which was the first time we tried that with the survey, and we had some great support from one of the officers for the Indiana Association of the Deaf who connected us with a vendor. But I just want to let you know what we did with that report. We provided that to the Great Lakes ADA Center and the Indiana Governor's Council for People with Disabilities. They are heading into a time where they're doing their new 5-year planning for 2022 through 2027. So it was a great opportunity to collect that information during the 30th anniversary year and provide it to them to have them review and incorporate some of the suggestions that we had from members of the various, whether it was the leaders or the town hall meeting participants or through the survey. So it was a great opportunity for us to share that information with them and have them review it and hopefully incorporate some of the suggestions that came out of that. It's available on our website if you would like to download it as a PDF. You can check that out. It's under the ADA anniversary. We only have 5 top level tabs, ADA anniversary, about Indiana, grants, training, resources on our website. So feel free to go to that or send me an email or call me, and I'd be happy to share that with you. Part of this ADA at 30 Summit, one of the reports we did was the ADA report card, something that we do every 5 years, just to get a idea and maybe a talking point about what Indiana could be doing better in terms of promoting the implementation of the ADA. And then our grants program, we received 10 proposals. We put this on hiatus last year in 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic, because a lot of our funding, this funding is really meant to go to local communities for them to do local training activities and events to promote implementation of the ADA. So last year, we put it on hold because we didn't quite know what kind of recommendations to give to people. People were just kind of learning. Some organizations canceled events, others moved forward and did a virtual, however they could do it. But this year we kind of came back and we returned to accepting proposals. We received 10 proposals, and our steering committee selected 2 proposals to fund under our. As a result of our ADA Summit activities, we found that employment and transportation were big issues. And so those were kind of our priorities for our transportation and employment. Those were our priorities for our grants program this year. And so we selected a program or a project submitted by Easter Seals Crossroads called Education for Employers and Individuals with Disabilities in a Reverse Job Fair. That's something that they're planning to do in July. They're hoping to do an in-person event, but they have a backup plan in case they need to do it virtual. And then another project down in the Bloomington area called Increasing Transportation and Mobility Accessible Opportunities for All. This is, again, going to be a in-person event that they're hoping that the way that they presented it, they're doing it in a huge facility owned by the city of Bloomington, and they're going to have small groups that are going to go outside and do some various accessibility surveying of various transportation and mobility options for people with disabilities in the Bloomington community. So we're looking forward to hearing how those projects go. And then another exciting thing we're doing this year is the ADA Training Academy. Since a lot of our focus is, again, promoting voluntary compliance with the ADA, this is our ADA Training Academy. This is our first year doing this. And what we are doing is supporting 3 community teams to complete ADA coordinator training. And under the Title II of the ADA, for local and state governments, there's a requirement for those entities to have a designated employee who handles ADA compliance. And so there's a program through the Great Plains ADA Center. We are under the catchment area of the Great Lakes ADA Center, but there's the Great Plains. They do a program called the ADA Training Certification, where it gives people the information to where they could actually know what to do in that role as the ADA coordinator. But it's really not limited to municipal and state employees. It can be taken by anyone. And actually, I've completed the training. We have a couple of members on our steering committee who have completed it as well. Some are ADA coordinators. Rick Edwards, he completed it. He's a state ADA coordinator. But we also have other people. We have a couple of advocates on our steering committee who have completed the training. This is a way to, know what you need to know in order to make sure that your local government is doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so we're really looking forward to seeing how this turns out. We are supporting these individuals to go through this training. It is an online program, but they do have to do some training. Usually the initial part of the training is done at the National Ada Symposium, which is a huge event that's held each year that provides a wide range of training on the Americans with Disabilities Act, from the very basic to the very advanced. And this year, the National ADA Symposium will have a small in-person event in July, but the main focus will be on a virtual symposium in the first week of August. And so we're really excited that we have a lot of organizations. We have City of Bloomington, City of Fort Wayne, City of Martinsville, county government, who are these individuals will be participating as those municipal representatives, but we also have disability organizations such as a couple of independent living centers have staff enrolled in this academy. And then also we will, these academy members, not only will they complete the certification program, they'll attend the National ADA Symposium, but they'll also participate as part of our ADA Indiana group, and they'll give us some new perspective from different communities and also different aspects, people with disabilities, and also from entities who have compliance. They have to comply with the ADA, so it gives us a better perspective on the information that they need. So we're really looking forward to how that turns out. And then, of course, we do exhibits and presentations. Here's some of the organizations we've been trying to reach out to this year. Again, we are, even though we're I think we're getting towards the end of this pandemic, a lot of organizations have played it safe and either moved their events, whether it's their annual conference online or they've developed some other virtual experience. The American Council of the Blind is doing an interesting thing. They're doing a monthly information station for their membership, and so I'll be presenting later on this month to their group. And the Indiana Association of the Deaf, they're doing a virtual conference. The Fort Wayne Disability Expo, it's been canceled. They're not doing a virtual experience, but I'm trying to connect with these organizations just as a way to provide them, let them know that we're here and we can provide training and information about the ADA. And then, good example of ADA training that we do. We do a lot of promotion of the training that is available through the ADA National Network, and our Great Lakes ADA Center do 3 to 4 webinar series each month. And certainly visit our website and you can find out more about that. But, we did a webinar Thursday with the Indiana Association of Municipal and ADA, or ADA and Title VI coordinators. We did a webinar with them on Thursday, had a great turnout. And so that's kind of was something very specific that we did for Indiana in order to reach those municipal coordinators that work in our state. And then, of course, I mentioned our website. Feel free to check out our website, adaindiana.org. We have a lot of resource pages that we've developed on specific topics, the employment provisions. One of them that we're promoting is COVID-19. There are so many resources out there for disability groups around COVID-19. Our COVID-19 resource page focuses a lot on the information that is being put out by the ADA National Network, whether it's fact sheets or their webinar. They've done several webinars on face coverings, what businesses need to know, return to work, all those topics. So feel free to visit that page, or if you need a specific resource, you can check in with me. And then, of course, Great Lakes ADA Center, we are their state affiliate. Some exciting news this month is Marcy Hinsman, who was our chair of ADA Indiana. She was an advocate living in the Lafayette area, and she has been our chair for a few years. But she resigned last month because she accepted a position with the Great Lakes ADA Center to be a technical assistance specialist for them. So we're excited for her. Sorry to lose her leadership with our organization, but she will continue to be a liaison to Indiana for Great Lakes ADA Center. So if you call that National ADA Helpline I've been mentioning, the 800-949-4232, you may very well talk to Marcy. And she may very well mentions that you're from somewhere in Indiana. She may very well know where you're coming from, and then also Great Lakes. They're part of the national network. As I mentioned, there are 9 other regional ADA centers like the Great Lakes ADA Center. And certainly they provide a wealth of resources. Like I mentioned, Great Lakes ADA Center, they do 3 webinar series, trainings that they have national experts talking on the topic. They do the ADA Helpline. They provide publications, whether mostly now during the pandemic it's been focused on electronic. The 800 number, you can call and ask any type of question. What's covered, what do you think about this situation? Certainly they are not legal advocates, they're not attorneys, but you can ask them, well, what should I be thinking about this? Is this discrimination? They may not be able to say, well, I think that is discrimination, but they will be able to give you the resources. They kind of don't want to give you legal advice because they're not attorneys, but certainly they can put you in the right direction with some resources, whether it's, to what are the specific requirements. They can give you some referrals, maybe share some training. I've mentioned that they're ADA training. I would encourage you to visit our website. Visit our website because we link to a lot of their trainings. But the ADA publications through the ADA National Network, probably there is, like I said, a large amount of information that they provide. One of the things, good place to start, is the ADA questions and answers. This is the kind of reviews all the chapters, the titles in the ADA, and provides answers to the most common questions, whether it's employment, local government, and all that. I think the last time I was with you in March, I think I brought copies of their publications that they developed specifically for hearing loss and communication rights. And so this age, hearing loss, and communication, what are my rights? It's a 3-page document that covers not only the rights of a person under the Americans with Disabilities Act, but it also provides information about like what kind of accommodations may be available. So, like local government should be considering, providing captioning for all their meetings. Talks about, American Sign Language and what population that may be good for. That there's such a range of what could be offered as an accommodation that you really should be working with the individual in terms of meeting their needs. And then effective communication. This is a 2-page overview of what's required under the ADA in terms of for Title II, the public entities, state and local government, and then Title III, those are the organizations like stores, hotels, and such. So it gives a good overview of effective communication. And then one of the very latest, I think they just released it a month or so ago. I haven't even had time to go through and really study it. It's a 3-page publication called Healthcare and Face Coverings, Reducing Communication Barriers for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Patients. And so I would encourage you to maybe take a look at this one and share it throughout your organization. I think just looking at it briefly, it gave an overview of effective communication and then provide various different accommodation scenarios. So I thought it was a great resource. But I have included this in here. If you have a question or would like the information, I included a share folder just for your group here where I included all these materials. The resource page would actually have where you could go and get the publication itself as a PDF, but the ADA National Network is really great in terms of, they'll have a HTML version, an online version of that publication. They'll have a print version that you can print out that they formatted just for printing, but they'll also have a large print PDF as well. So feel free to go there and pick that up. And like I said, I will share this. I have the URL here on the screen. You could, scan that QR code. That'll take you right there. But I will also share this with Paula and Teresa. And I'm finished. I think I went over my time. I apologize.
I just have to say, wow, that's a lot. And I appreciate you condensing. I don't know how you did that that you did, but we would certainly like to ask some questions, I would think. I think Paula lost her connection.
Oh, okay.
She has been very involved in these face coverings and try to get some things done to get the clear masks there in businesses and, you know, government agencies and whatever. So I'm sure she would like to talk about that a little bit. But I'm going to ask any of our members if they have questions, if they would just unmute and ask Matt. I would have with you, Matt. How long are you?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
How long can you hang around?
I can hang around for a few more minutes.
A few minutes. Okay.
Yeah,
So-
and I actually, you know, like I said, I kind of I knew I was covering a lot of information, so I did provide the PowerPoint here in my share folder, and there is a resource page which will have links to those documents. I think the healthcare, I covered the healthcare and face coverings. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to really dig into this because it was just released a month or so ago. And I think this would be a great resource. I think they actually talk about the various, you know, options. You know, we're so used to the cloth face coverings. I think it also has, you know, options that healthcare providers might look into in terms of, you know, what other face coverings they could be using that might reduce those communication barriers.
Well, I think we might want to spend some time on those documents that you forwarded to us, and then maybe we can come up with some questions of our own or have another.
Sure. And anyone can feel free to give me a call if they have any specific questions. You know, we are in the midst of one of the things we are doing for our commemorating the 31st anniversary of the ADA in July is we are not hosting a public event, of course. We think it's still too soon, but we are making a couple of informational videos. And if anyone in HLAA, if anyone's interested, and I'm not going to say you're going to become a YouTube star, but if you would like to share your story, and certainly, you know, maybe sharing your story, maybe some of the challenges and barriers you've experienced during the pandemic in terms of, you know, maybe it's going into business. And I remember, I don't know if it was Teresa or someone else, but they shared this great story. I wish I would have remembered who it was, but they shared this story about how they went into a business. And of course, they were finding it very, you know, a lot of this person, they were hard of hearing, and they were finding it very difficult to communicate with the store person because of the face coverings. And they said that one of the solutions that they came up with was they started using this application called Google Live Transcribe. You guys are probably more familiar with that than I am. But they talked about how they were able to bring that application up on their phone. And of course, you know, they set it right in front of the store owner and the store person. And so they were able to, you know, get the captioning right there on their phone. And I thought that was those are kind of the stories that we're kind of looking for in terms of, you know, if you would have a story, you know, of maybe a challenge or barrier that was related to the ADA, certainly a store would be under Title III of the ADA as a place of public accommodation, and they would have some obligations in terms of accommodating, you know, a person with a disability, you know. And if you have a story like that, we would be very interested in talking with you about it. We have a small compensation. We're looking to have 3 of these videos, and one of them we want to focus on communication access. And so we would be very willing to provide a small compensation for a person who might be willing to share their story in a video and allow us to put that up, you know, on our YouTube channel and use that as part of our 31st anniversary ADA celebration commemoration this year. So I just thought I'd put that out there if anyone was interested.
Okay, I want Ted to be able to ask his question.
Yeah, I have a question regarding to the Great Lakes that you talked about.
Yes, Great Lakes ADA Center, yeah.
Yeah, and you talked about the summit report, and you
Yes.
also talked about a 5-year planning,
Yes.
2022 to 2027.
Yes.
When will that report be finished and posted?
The ADA Summit report for Indiana, we have already finished that, and it's available on our website. I wonder if I could share the website with you.
Thank you.
Yes, the Great Lakes ADA Center, they are in the process. They are going to apply. They are hosted at the University of Illinois at Chicago. And they are finishing up. This is their 5th year being the Great Lakes ADA Center. And so they are reapplying to the federal government to continue being the Great Lakes ADA Center for another 5 years to 2027. And so as part of their proposal, they have to go through and what are the needs, why should they, be the regional ADA center, because, they have to focus on the technical assistance, the information and the training that they'll be doing in the region, not just Indiana, but they serve Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Michigan. Oh, am I going to be able to? I hope you can see the ADA Indiana website page here. Hello?
Yeah, I don't see the.
Did my share not work out? You're not seeing the ADA Indiana website?
Oh, yeah, I'll get this information from Ella, so no problem.
Well, if you were to go to the ADA Indiana website, you would see the ADA anniversary, and under that, you'll see the ADA Summit report. If you were to go to adaindiana.org, there is ADA anniversary about news and events, training, grants, and resources. We've tried to keep that to a minimum, but going to the ADA anniversary and clicking on that, you will see there that we have the ADA report card. We have a video from our state celebration we did last July. Teresa was great in being one of our speakers, talking about some of the challenges for the hearing loss community. We have the ADA Summit report, and that is a report that we put together. It's I'm not going to say it's a brief report. It's pretty long because we had interviews with 13 disability leaders here in our state. We had the 4 online town meetings based on Terre Haute area, Muncie, the southern Indiana, and then northwest Indiana, really northern Indiana, and then of course our ADA online survey that we did. And so the report is it's a little lengthy, but certainly we have the ADA report card. That's just reporting out the results from our online survey. But feel free to take a look at it. We also have some, other under the ADA anniversary. We have the ADA stories. We talked with a couple of representatives from not only Centers for Independent Living, the American Council for the Blind, but we also had Holly Elkins. You're probably familiar with her from the Indiana Association of the Deaf. She was our legislative chair. I understand you guys worked with their organization on some communication legislation here in this past session. But feel free to take a look at it, and I will. I should have included in that my resource, but maybe I can send an email to Teresa and Paula and have them send that forward out to you. So,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
yes, thank you. I'm glad to be joining you all today. I think I want to get out and just down here. We're going to probably have a 60+ degree day here in Bloomington, Indiana. So I'm going to get out. It's going to be warm, kind of chilly spring. But thank you today for letting me join you. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt.
Take care.
Matt, I have a question.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a good understanding after your presentation that you really provide a lot of information and teaching and training and promotion of ADA. But what I don't have a good sense of is how do you actually interact with employers, not specifically on individual cases, which you explained you don't have the legal part, but for example, broad issues like do you ever interact, for example, with the Indiana television broadcasting stations to keep on their hammer that closed captioning is inadequately presented in the state, and otherwise it relies on just one individual always complaining or a small chapter always complaining? Do you actually interact with these larger groups and with all your armaments of information about how it really is in the ADA concept to help promote accessibility? You act that way.
Well, certainly. Thank you for the question, Ella. And we do provide, because our mission is to, and this is a mission that we've kind of inherited from the Great Lakes ADA Center, which has inherited that from their funding source, because, we are, we promote voluntary compliance. And so, for instance, I do talk to employers, like, for instance, the training that we'll be doing through our ADA grants program, the Easter Seals Crossroads. They will be bringing in a trainer. We recommended that they bring in someone from the Job Accommodation Network, Great Lakes ADA Center, or even the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission to provide that training for employers in terms of what their obligations are under Title I, those employment provisions, as well as reasonable accommodations. And so we don't have, that is a part of the ADA enforcement that we don't do. And so we do provide information, like, for instance, if I get a call from someone who they feel very strongly that they're being discriminated against in their workplace. Maybe they put in, they wanted their employer to provide captioning at their staff meetings, and their employer didn't want to do the costs and stuff like that. And they've gone through the process of requesting the accommodation. They've gotten back, that no, we're not going to cover that. And so, we provide the information of how they can go to, enforce their rights, whether it's with, here in our state in Indiana, you can file a complaint with the Indiana Civil Rights Commission, or you can go and file it with the federal agency that's charged with handling the enforcement of those employment provisions, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. In some communities, like, for instance, Bloomington, some of you are there in the Indianapolis area. Maybe some of you are joining from South Bend, Fort Wayne, Terre Haute. All those communities have local human rights commissions that will actually, they'll actually call up or engage in a conversation with that local employer to inform them that, hey, not only are you breaking our local human rights ordinance, but you're also, there's our Indiana Civil Rights Law, and then there's the ADA. So that's kind of the information I would provide to someone who was having those challenges, whether it's getting an accommodation through, their workspace, or maybe, as I talked about with the, local government, providing them with, for instance, if someone was having difficulties getting the city of Bloomington to provide captioning at their for their public meetings. I'm attending this meeting and this meeting. I've been requesting this accommodation for months now, and they still are not providing it. They're not providing it, via the virtual work meeting, or maybe even having the in-person meeting. They're not providing the captioning at the meeting, and I've requested it. And so I would help them go through, well, have you talked with, the ADA coordinator for the city of Bloomington? City of Bloomington does have a ADA coordinator that they promote. They do it the right way. They have it located on their website. If you have an issue with, what you think is discrimination from the city of Bloomington and them not complying with the ADA, contact this person. And so I would encourage them to initiate, a conversation with, in this case, Barbara McKinney, the ADA coordinator for Bloomington. And if that doesn't go anywhere, then certainly they would, the U.S. Department of Justice enforces that part of the ADA, so they should file a complaint with. I'm not going to tell them to file a complaint, because that to me would be kind of borderline, legal advice. But I would encourage them that here is how you would file a complaint with the Department of Justice. They have right on their ada.gov, file a complaint. They have what's going to happen once you do it. I might tell them a little bit about the form. It can be a little intimidating because they have it set up to where they want to make sure that you're filing a specific complaint they can actually address. So those are the kind of things. I hope that answers your question, Ella.
Okay, Teresa, do you want to jump in here?
Oh, hi, Teresa.
I think she had a
Good morning. Thank you so much. And thank you very much, Cindy, for moderating. Thank you, Matt. I'm so sorry that I arrived a little later. I had another obligation where duty called. I have a question for you. Do you have a link to the latest ADA coordinator listing, please, for Indiana? Would you happen to have that, or do you know where I could find that?
We actually, there is no such list. And what I'm thinking you're thinking of, like, for instance, municipalities in our state should, if they have 50 or more employees, they should have that designated employee. And so, for instance, you think in terms of the large cities like Terre Haute, Indianapolis, Bloomington, Fort Wayne, all of the 92 counties should have an ADA coordinator. But I said should. And so there is no list. We do maintain a ADA coordinator list, if that's
for your agency. I mean, for your
for ADA Indiana.
For your university, you do, right? But are you aware of any other source that we could
yes,
tap into?
Actually, I am. I'm thinking that the U.S. The Indiana Department of Transportation, as part of they have been really strongly encouraging local communities who are receiving funding from them to be very public about who is their ADA coordinator, and just because the Federal Highway Administration has been. They want to ensure that whoever is receiving their funding is doing a good faith effort to follow the civil rights law, not only the Americans with Disabilities Act, but Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. And so they've kind of passed that down to INDOT, who receives their funding, and then INDOT is passing it down to those local municipalities who receive funding from them. And so what I could say is that I think INDOT may have, as part of, if you receive INDOT funding for your public works projects, they would require you to identify who is your ADA coordinator. And so maybe that would be something that you could see if they maintain that list. We have a list of over 300 or so, and certainly I would confer with my steering committee. But are you guys looking at wanting to?
Well, I think it would help us in terms of our the endeavors that we're doing with the Indiana Committee for Communication Access. Are you aware of that little subcommittee?
Yes, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ashley Lowe. Unfortunately, she's moved on. Has left the city of Peru and the Indiana Association of ADA and Title VI coordinators. She was the president, but I think she was participating on that committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this committee, we're working on a couple of things, and we're also gathering local, county, and city government to come together and form a roundtable where we can discuss these captioning bills. That first and foremost, of course, because we want to see that all of Indiana is providing these accommodations, public accommodations, when the deaf or hard of hearing need captioning in public spaces. And so we've been working on that because at the state level, that was a little tough to try to get to. And I suspected that kind of might happen. You really have to start at the lower level. You got to start small before you really move big. And I mean, that's just in theory, and sometimes that theory is actually true, that you have to start small and just kind of branch out in order for other entities to conform to that norm, so to speak. And the only way that's going to happen is you have to start small, like I said, like a grassroots effort, small.
Sure.
And so that's where we're at. We decided to take another approach.
I think connecting, Ashley Lowe, she was the ADA coordinator for the city of Peru, the mayor's assistant, and also the president. Since she's moved on, it's actually now Ben Marita who will be the interim president of the Indiana Association of ADA and Title VI coordinators. That may be a great organization to connect with.
Okay.
Talking about, he's the ADA coordinator for the city of Martinsville.
Okay.
And that organization, we don't have a connection to them. We just try to keep up with we always like to have
like a network.
Yeah, we because they are affiliated. They are an affiliate of AIM, which used to be known as the Indiana Association of Cities and Towns.
Okay.
Now they're called AIM. I forget what the acronym's for. I think it's Accelerating Indiana Municipalities. And so there's that affiliate chapter of AIM, the Indiana Association of ADA and Title coordinators. And they have two, that association, when Kathy Gross, who is the mayor of Monticello, when she started it, they do meetings at the AIM annual conference, and then they do a meeting at the annual conference of the Indiana Association, the Association of Indiana Counties is another group. And so I think Ben Marita would be a great contact in talking about, how that might work. I know that some of the things I've learned from Kathy, Gross.
I've heard of her.
Yeah, she was the ADA coordinator for the city of Monticello. Now she's the mayor, and some of the challenges they've had is certainly they understand their Title II requirements, but yet they get a lot of pressure from organizations saying they should do better a job, because she said that a lot of times people thought, like, as a Title II ADA coordinator, she should be enforcing Title III compliance of businesses, et cetera, in her city. And that was, she can understand the people's frustration, but she was like, I don't, that's not, she wasn't saying that's not my job, but really she didn't have that capacity as a Title II coordinator. So those are some of the issues that probably need to be discussed in terms of, certainly the city of Bloomington, they have their Council for Community Accessibility, which has a volunteer surveying where they go out and survey area businesses. And, actually, Teresa, I don't think as part of a lot of that focus is on the physical accessibility.
Okay.
And so So I can see we're having a discussion with like, the, city groups like that with like, presenting to them. Have you ever thought about incorporating into your local accessibility survey where you go and you provide a local business or they actually do schools and hospitals as well, but providing them, not only with the physical accessibility, but also what are some aspects where they could look at it from a more, like for instance, do you provide, screens like in your waiting area? Are you providing, televisions where you're doing maybe some promotions of your programs? You've walked into hospitals, right? And you've sat in their waiting areas, and most of what's on the screen is talking about upcoming programs the hospitals supporting. And so that would be a great opportunity to, bring in that element of what other things they should be looking for, not just physical access. If I'm making sense, I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
And
thank you.
We would certainly. Would you be? I mean, let's talk about maybe you coming. We don't require our ADA training academy. Ben Marita is actually participating in our training academy that I talked about, and he's hoping to get his certification. And so, I mean, if you would love to come and talk about some of the issues for hearing loss Indiana at one of our upcoming ADA Indiana meetings,
Okay.
that would be great. We in March we met with Luke Labas.
Okay.
He's the new ADA coordinator for the city of Indianapolis. I don't know if you've met him yet.
I haven't met him yet. No, yeah. I would love to meet him. We have a lot to talk about.
Sure. Yeah, he has an interesting background. He's actually worked at the league up in Fort Wayne as one of their information and referral coordinators, and he was recently hired in November to be the new ADA coordinator. I think his official title is Program Director for the Office of Disability Affairs there in Bloomington. And but I really think, it's like Rick Edwards on our steering committee always says that, Rick Edwards is a wheelchair user, and he says that sometimes, and he was talking about this with Luke, because Luke is also a wheelchair user and is a person who has lived with cerebral palsy. And Rick was talking about sometimes as people who are challenged with physical barriers, sometimes we get so focused on those physical barriers that, we kind of lose sight of there are other people, the American Council for the Blind of Indiana, their issues are very different than, say, someone, such as your organization. They're interested in, during the voting. I mean, their issues around the pandemic have been really eye-opening, because you walk into a store and you see that they've marked out the spacing in terms of the 6 feet, all those issues that really depend on you being able to visually see that. And so it's been really educational talking with them about some of those issues. And so I'm glad we have this opportunity to discuss. And I would love to have you maybe come and spend some time with our steering committee. We like to incorporate guest speakers. And I would be happy to provide you with Luke's contact information.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just a little secret. I used to be the ADA coordinator in Illinois.
Oh, did you?
So,
yeah,
I loved it. And
so you probably
that's why I love the ADA so much.
Sure. You probably know Robin Jones, right?
Yes, and she knows me too. Yeah. They know, the Great Lakes. They've known me from when I worked at the state. That's when they first met me. Yeah, back in the day, and so. Yeah, so I would love to talk to Luke, no doubt, because there's a lot of things I would like to bring awareness to him about the needs of our hard of hearing community.
Yeah, and they are starting up, my understanding from our March meeting, he talked about for years that the city of Indianapolis, their Office of Disabilities Affairs, has supported what they called the MACD, the Mayor's Advisory Council on Disability. And so that would be a great opportunity someone from your organization, to let him know when you start this MACD up again, we'd love to be a part of it. And because I think before they've had representatives from a lot of the disability organizations like Easter Seals Crossroads, SACOA, the area agency on aging. And so I don't know in terms of like disability, probably the ARC of Indiana has a representative, but he was really excited, like, they're going to get that starting again. And that would be a great opportunity.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
No, thank you all.
And thank you for coming. We're just elated that you came and provided all this wealth of information.
And like I said, if anyone from your organization is interested in, we're doing that informational video. If you're interested in being a YouTube star, I doubt if we'll get that many views, but certainly if you have a story that you would like to share, we would love to talk with you about it. And, we do have that small stipend of $100. But certainly feel free to give me a contact where we would love to, like I said, one of our videos is going to focus on community access. And we would love to hear about a story where someone's had that challenge from going through the COVID-19 pandemic. You probably have lots of challenges you could talk about and how it was resolved. Maybe you were able to work out some, accommodation or I guess I don't want to say it has to have like a success story, but certainly that would make it a very appealing story. And I know that you guys have some great advocates on your group, so I know that there would probably be a lot of successes on how you were able to work out an accommodation with either a local government or a business. So feel free to contact me. We'd love to, feature that in our one of our videos this coming summer.
Cindy, I think Paula has a question.
Okay, Paul, shoot away.
Hi. Okay, my video is not on. Okay, there it is. Okay, I just had a couple things. One, I think it would be really great if ADA Indiana would maintain a list of ADA coordinators that you're aware of. It can be just constantly updated. I know there's a lot of transition with that, but this would be just a great resource list. And there's just a lot of reasons to coordinate and know who those POCs are.
Just to be clear, we do keep a list, but it's one of those things that being affiliated with an Indiana, we are affiliated with Indiana University, and I would just need to go through, and we do have a list that we maintain, and we've had this conversation several years ago whether or not we can share that list, because these are people who most of the list is public, right? I think I would have to go through because an ADA coordinator. That's public information. All these city employees is public information. But I think on our current list, we have individuals that may not fall under that public information. And so we probably need to go through. We have like a list of 300 or so. When we send out a monthly, maybe I should add one of your officers to that list, Teresa or Paula. And we send out a monthly e-news that's really focused on ADA coordinators. And so in our list, we have like town managers, county coordinators, city coordinators, even we go so far as to include people with human rights. And like I said, probably like 95% of that list are public employees who work for some local government, state agency. That information, not only under the ADA, but probably under Indiana, it's all right that we share that because it's public information. But there's that 5% that I would probably need to go through, and people who have asked me, like, hey, I work, I'm so, can you add me to this list? Like, we have a couple of members who are disability advocates that I couldn't share their contact information, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, whatever's appropriate. But it'd be great resource for our organization and others, as Teresa has indicated. And then another thing I was wondering about, let's see what I see here. Oh, I was wondering who's on the ADA Indiana committee, or is that listed on your website? I just go to that.
Yes, it should be listed on About in our steering committee, and you should have, I probably need to update it because Marcy Hinsman, like I said, she left our committee last month, so I need to update it. But I still have Kathy Gross as the city of Monotone. Her it's now Catherine Tardif. I don't know, but it looks like it's pretty up to date. Yeah.
Okay. I can go to the website too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to just thank you very much. Your presentation was very informative, and you just have a wealth of information there. So we can go on to some other questions people might have. Thank you.
And if you actually wanted to, certainly, like I said, I send out an e-newsletter each month to what I call the ADA coordinator list, but it's a little bit more than that. We do have state agencies, county governments, but like I said, are some disability advocates that are on there, and so I would be happy to, like, if you wanted to set up, like, we're trying to connect with local organizations. I could certainly look at maybe including something if you had like a form or something that you wanted them to, because we also offer these individuals an opt-out, like if they don't want to receive any communications per Indiana University guidelines, we have to provide an opt-out for them to unsubscribe to our newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. And so there are some people that, I have on the list that have opted out, but that doesn't mean that they stop being the ADA coordinator for this specific county. It just means that they don't want to receive my monthly e-news, but I still have them on the list, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sure. I think connecting with Ben Marita and the Indiana Association might be, I think Ashley, I thought she was working with or representing their association as part of your, when you were doing the communication access legislation this past year?
Who were you talking about, Matt?
Ashley Lowe.
Oh, Ashley Lowe. I'd have to ask Linda. Linda's the chair of that committee. I'll have to ask her. Anyway, I won't keep you.
Oh, okay. You guys know me well enough. Feel free to contact me. We can talk more about the list, and we can talk more about connecting, you coming and presenting, and I'll connect you with Luke, of course, at the City of Indianapolis. And I can even, if you would love, the Council for Community Accessibility. I don't know if you guys have any presence down here in the Bloomington area. I know, there's HLAA Michiana, and then there's Indianapolis, but there's no chapter for Southern Indiana.
Matt, you are correct. There is not a chapter in Bloomington. Our focus has been so far, and we're willing, even I'm willing, anybody, if they want to, we're willing to reach out to people outside of Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're here to help regardless. But our main focus is Indianapolis and the surrounding communities, such as Carmel, Avon, Pendleton, all those areas around there. Mm-hmm.
And so I could I mean, that's great if, that really gives me some ideas, because if you had specific counties within your catchment area, like I mentioned, I can go through and filter my list and just give you the municipal government employees that I have on my list in those counties. Like, for instance, Ben Merida, Stephen Rushforth, he is the ADA coordinator for Hamilton County. That would fall under your, probably your, if you're looking at those donut counties around the Indianapolis area. And I can go through and, like, for instance, there's a council person in Fishers, Indiana. She's on our list. And so I could go through, and of course, Luke. And so that would be one approach we could talk about doing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Well, I'll let Cindy continue to monitor. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thanks, Matt. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Teresa, what else do we want to do? Just have any kind of an open discussion? We only have a few minutes left before noon.
Oh, sure. If anyone would like to bring up anything, I'll just let you know that I did get